Shalom. Call Haloyamla, Yahapwa, Bahasham, Yahabushai, Bahasham Racha Kodash, Brakata Yahapwa, Brakata Yahabushai, Brakata Racha Kodash, Bahasham Yahabushai, Bahasham Racha Kodash. Shalom and double honors unto the elder apostles of Great Millstone. Shalom to the elders in the Akim and the Akwath. Shalom. I want to go into a quick video entitled, Further Evidence, Natives and Latinos, or the Northern Kingdom. So-called Native American Indians and so-called Latinos. So here in the book of 1 Kings chapter 10 and verse 22 has a key nugget to dive into and to further prove, about this this lie that, the natives over here are not the lost 10 tribes, but they actually are. So verse 22, for the king had at sea a navy of Tarshish with the navy of Hiram. Once in 3 years came the navy of Tarshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory and apes and peacocks. So, for the king, and who was the king at this time? This was King Solomon. And so he had a navy. So what is a navy? A navy is a fleet of ships. It's a certain amount of ships. However many, one wants to set forth on the waters, on the ocean. So that's what a navy is. So King Solomon had a navy. We had ships all the way back, thousands of years ago, way before Esau, so-called white race, even knew how to, surf the ocean, navigate the ocean. So right here it says, once in 3 years came the navy of Tarshish bringing gold, silver and ivory and apes and peacocks. So why once in 3 years? If one would look at that and say that would be a very inefficient way, a very inefficient use of the ships. So it's a reason why it took 3 years for the ships, that the ships came back only once in 3 years. And we're going to dive into that real quick and see, because the apes and peacocks were nearby in that area of the earth. Because this was in the land. This was in the time when we were in the promised land over there in Israel, right? So there's peacocks and apes in East India, Sri Lanka, and Africa. So why would the ships need to take that long to pick up? Send out a ship to pick up those items in silver and gold. That would be an incredibly inefficient use of a navy of ships, right? They're not just docking these ships. King Solomon didn't have these ships docked for long periods of time, just sitting there wasting time. It's because it was a certain travel time that it needed to get to where it had to go and to come back. So we'll go ahead real quick and go into 2nd Ezra, chapter 13, in verse 40. It says, those are the 10 tribes, that's the northern kingdom, which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king, whom Salmanassar, the king of Assyria, led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land. So, when you know the history, we know that the nation of Israel, we split into 2 different kingdoms, the northern and southern. The 10 tribes headed by Ephraim went to the northern kingdom, which is known as Samaria and Palestine over there today. And then the southern kingdom is Judah, Benjamin, Levi, because the northern kingdom kicked out the Levites that were to be in all 12 tribes' lands to minister unto the Most High and keep the ordinances of the laws in all the tribes. But the northern kingdom went off and kicked out the Levites, and they all got pushed out of the northern kingdom, and all the Levites officially had resided with the southern kingdom. Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. So that's why they had got taken away by the Assyrian king and went to captivity, into the Assyrian captivity, because they went off and were doing, very wickedly, going after false idols. And so after a while, in that Assyrian captivity, when the northern kingdom got led away and taken out the land into Assyria and different areas like Nineveh, they decided to leave. After a period of time, the Most High allowed them to leave and go elsewhere. So we'll continue reading. So verse 41, but they took this counsel among themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen. That was the Assyrians and the other heathen that may have been, that they were around, and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt. So they took it. So the northern kingdom came together and said, okay, we need to go ahead and leave the heathen so we can go ahead and serve the Most High. And we'll go into a further land where nobody else ever, no other country has ever dwelt in. In verse 42, that they might there keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land. What own land? The northern kingdom. So they said, we're going to go into another land where no one else, where no other man has ever lived. And we're going to, that's going to be that's our land, and we're going to keep the commandments over there of the Most High in this land far away. In verse 43, and they entered into Euphrates by the narrow places of the river. So this is the route in which how they had to get to this far away country. Verse 44, for the Most High then showed signs for them. Signs where? In the heavens. It could have been a chariot, so-called UFO, guiding them as well, like in the wilderness when they left out of Egypt. And then also the tribe of Issachar, they specialized in reading the stars above in the sky, because that's like a message center from the Most High to direct us in wars and give us messages and communicate with us when, different judgments are going to come down as well, and then the sun and the moon as well. So that's how the Most High was communicating in the skies, in the heavens, with the northern kingdom, gently guiding them across the water to this other land. So verse 44, for the Most High then showed signs for them and held still the flood till they were passed over. Verse 45, so the Most High had calmed the ocean and allowed them to safely, and that's love from the Most High. Even though, the Most High judging, chastening us, he ultimately loves us, and that is a merciful thing. He kept the water still so that they can peacefully travel over the water. Held still the flood till they were passed over. So it shows you that nothing happens without everything that happens, the Most High he allows it all, whether it's a roaring ocean or if it's calm, the Most High is doing that. Verse 45, for through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half, and the same region is called Arsarit. And over here in America, Arsarit means another land, and that's what they were referencing. They was referencing the Americas. And so that proves that, that's the northern kingdom, this main portion right here, because it show you how they got here. It took a year and a half, and they went through the Euphrates. And and if you get into the Euphrates from over there in the eastern areas over there where they left, the Syrian area and landmass, and you travel on the ocean through the Euphrates, it'll take a year and a half to get to the Americas. And so that's the key right there from First Kings will be read. That year and a half is the key to it all right there, because if it takes a year and a half to leave from the east to get to the Americas, what's 1.5 years times 2? 3 years. So when we get back to First Kings 10:22, it says what? When we go down here, it says once in 3 years came the navy, the ships of Tarshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory, and apes and peacocks. So that shows you and proves you right there that these ships were going to the Americas. Because one time So once every 3 years. So it take a year and a half to get to the Americas from over there, from Israel and that region. It took a year and a half to get to the Americas, gather these different, get the gold and silver and the treasures over here, and then different animals like the peacocks. Well, and then it took a year and a half to come back. So that's 3 years total. A year and a half to get to the Americas, gather up what they were going to gather, then get back, set out for the voyage on the ocean. A year and a half to come back to Solomon and bring those imports, those imported goods and animals. So the key here is when we go into these words right here, apes. It's the word up here at the top, H6971, quap. So when you see down here, it's an ape. So an ape is the species of the monkeys, gorillas, orangutans, the chimpanzees, baboons, all of these different monkeys, right? So that's the ape species. So apes are, along the way they could have stopped and got, through Africa. Apes are in Africa and also and peacocks are there as well. But peacocks are the main species of peacocks are native to India, East India over there. So they could have stopped real quick and gathered some things from there, different areas, and then kept on a voyage to the Americas. So want to point out that distinction real quick. So the ape is monkeys, gorillas, orangutans, and different baboons, the ape species. So I point that out for a reason. So when we go down now, so it said, excuse me, it says apes and peacocks. So the peacocks here, when you click on peacocks, when you look up here at the top, it's H8500 Takayum. So it's like, it sounds like what? It sounds like turkey. So when the Hebrew characters of the Assyrian Hebrew right here, you read it from right to left. So you read it from right to left. So the first character, ta, and then the second is ka, yayam, takayayam, takayam, takayayam. So so it sounds like turkey. It translates into English as turkey. So, and then even right here, the pronunciation says tuki. What does that sound like? Turkey. Tuki, turkey. And then when you look at the definition, this is where Esau is the devil the Bible speaks of, because he puts this animal is a peacock, baboon, ape. Now we know we just went. I want to break down what an ape was. Ape is of the monkeys, gorillas. That's a different species of animal than a peacock. A peacock is a bird that flies. A peacock and a ape, a monkey, are two totally different animals. So why is he saying it's a peacock, baboon, and ape? No, it's not a monkey. It's a bird. It's a particular kind of bird, and it's not a peacock either. It's a turkey. So right here, when we go down here, see, it says tuki, and then the other word is tuki. So that's want to emphasize how that sounds, because that sounds very similar to the word turkey. And so probably a foreign divination, some imported creature, probably a peacock, but it's of the bird family, but it's a turkey. And so, King Solomon, he didn't send the ships out for a year and a half to round up peacocks in very close by land masses, because Israel was actually on the same continental tectonic plate landmass as Africa. It's on the eastern tip over there of Africa. So it didn't take a year and a half to get some baboons out of Africa and from East India. So we look up here at the photos here. When you look up the peacocks, peacock native country, there are two familiar peacock species. The blue peacock lives in India and Sri Lanka, that's East India, over there in the Eastern Hemisphere, while the green peacock is found in Java and Myanmar, Burma. A more distinct and little known species, the Congo peacock, inhabits African rainforest. So there's the main majority of the peacocks native country is Sri Lanka and India, East India over there in the Eastern Hemisphere. And then there's another species that's not really known that well, which is also in Africa. So King Solomon, I make that point to point out that King Solomon is not sending ships for a year and a half to pick up peacocks and silver close by. That's a very inefficient waste of resources to have the ships out. The ships can be doing a lot of things, week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, year out. But these ships are taking 3 years. So when he send these particular ships out, it's going to take 3 years for them to come back and bring back the imported goods. And why is that? Because right here, when you look up Turkey, or Turkey's native to the United States, the domesticated, Salaki, getting a little excited, it says, the domesticated turkey of today bears little resemblance of their wild ancestors. Turkeys is probably a lot of breeding that the devil is doing to make them look a little, why they may look a little different from the ancient turkeys. Turkeys are a native North American bird that was a food source for the Native Americans who introduced turkeys to the recently arrived pilgrims and Spanish conquistadors in the 15th century. Well, we know the word conquistador means conqueror, the Spanish conquerors. They're the virus of the earth, came and killed and slaughtered our poor Northern Kingdom brothers when they were being nothing but brotherly and peaceful to them. But so I show you the turkeys are a North American bird, and we read and broke down the origin of that word in the Hebrew, and it goes back. It said to Kayayim or Tuki, and so turkey, and we know and we see that the turkeys are native only to America, to the Americas. Over here in the Western Hemisphere, another land, that far country, and that's who the Spanish conquerors met over here, the Northern Kingdom, and the Northern Kingdom shared with them with the turkey, and they celebrated and was peaceful with them, and so that's why that's why those ships that King Solomon sent out. He sent those ships out, and they came back once every 3 years because it took a year and a half to come to the Americas, gather up some of those turkeys, and then the gold and the silver, and then it took a year and a half to come on back. So this further proves that when you break it down, go into the precepts and break down the animals and their their native countries, you can see, and then to see how long the voyage took, how long it takes on ship to get from King Solomon and over in Israel, over in that region, on over to the Americas, a year and a half, 3 years. Those ships came once every 3 years because of that specific time frame it takes to come to the Americas and back. So just want to go ahead and go into that, proving once again, that so-called Latinos and Native American Indians are the lost 10 tribes, and they are Israelites. So with that being said, I hope this video is edifying. The water to the Rachakodash for another video. Bahashemi Hawashai. Till next video, I say, Shalom.